You are listening to the Average Pundits podcast.
Hi guys, and welcome back to the Average Pundits podcast, your home of all things Premier League. But today we are focusing on a World Cup qualifying squad special, based on the England announcement that we had a few days ago in contest rather for the next three games that we've got for the qualifiers. We've had a look at the squad. We've had our own shouts. We've had a lot of players that we think would rather be in there, but a lot to discuss on this team. And I'm sure there's a lot that you guys would like to get your opinions on as well. So we encourage lots of interactions on this episode. But as always, I am joined with Rhys. How you doing, Rhys?
I just realised that I chose the wrong podcast last week to wear the England shirt.
Yeah, you were wearing the retro England shirt last week, weren't you?
And of course, I can't wear it twice in a row. I can't wear it for two podcasts in a row. That's just illegal. So I had to change it up. The hat's come on. Barn, it's indoors because it's terrible, and we're going to have to talk about England.
Yeah, and there is a lot to mention. So if you were living under a rock and you weren't seeing the squad,
Which I
am, yeah, which I will quickly just run through. I'm not going to linger too much on it, but the goalkeepers, Henderson, Johnson and Pope. You've got a defensive lineup of Chilwell, Cody, Dyer, James, Maguire, Mings, Shaw, Stones, Trippier and Walker. And then the midfield of Jude Bellingham, Phil Foden, Jesse Lingard, Mason Mount, Calvin Phillips, Rhys and Ward-Prowse. And then finally up front, you've got Calvert-Lewin, Kane, Rashford, Saka, Sterling and Ollie Watkins. So on first glances, Rhys, I'll come over to you. What was your opinions of the team to start off with? Were you overall happy? Were you a bit kind of miffed at some players? Or
It's an England team, isn't it? You're never going to put out your best team. You're never going to put out your strongest, especially with the injuries that they've got at the moment. And that will kind of go into a bit later. But a lot of people will have a lot of opinions about this team. Certain players being left out. A massive player that was left out that hasn't been playing too well this season. And I think it's just all we have to play is some farmers in Poland at the end of the day, and then that's really all that we have to look forward to in this kind of bracket. So there were a lot of players that I thought were definitely deserving of that of the spot of the England team, but I think Southgate's done well with kind of the group or with the kind of sample that he had.
yeah, I think a lot of people I think were throwing their toys out the pram very early on, saying, right, okay, he's got to be joking now. What is this team? But I don't necessarily think the team. I think it's well rounded, but also we're currently a nation which is riddled by injuries. Over a lot of top players from the varying clubs. So obviously there's players like Grealish, Maddison, Sancho. There's players like Jordan Henderson, for example, who Joe Gomez, also Jordan Pickford as well, and he's looking like he might not even be ready for the Euros. So there's excuse me, there's a lot of players here that normally we'd be seeing in these kinds of squads, but also the fact that there is injuries and the fact that there are omissions means that there's chances for young players and more uncapped talent to go and prove, why they deserve a spot in this team. And one that I was, not necessarily annoyed to see, but I was a bit like, oh, okay, fair enough, was Sam Johnstone get the call up, because he's a perfectly capable Premier League goalkeeper. And I think he's been, which is, a lot to say, because, the West Brom team has been pretty awful this season, but he's been one of the better players. And I think if they were a team that were backed and a team that were able to show some progress, he'd be one of the players that I wouldn't touch. It would probably be him and that Mateus Pereira. But between the sticks, I think there's worse goalkeepers that you could have called up. But I think the other one that might have been in contention possibly was Cardalo. Obviously, had a really good half of the season for Newcastle. And, Dubravka's come back and also a very competent keeper on his day. But, Cardalo out and then Newcastle are now back fighting to stay up. Sam Johnstone or Cardalo? Quick question for you. Who would you have taken?
Darlow, 100%.
Darlow?
The one game that I watched in Newcastle's most recently was the one against Liverpool, and he had a fantastic game. One of the better performances I've seen against Liverpool, and that kind of started the downward spiral of what we now know is the complete flop of a title defense. I think Darlow has showed a lot of promise. You know, he's an aging keeper. He's not young anymore. He's 29. So I think that for me, Darlow it would have been nice to see him get a cap before before it's potentially too late. You know, you look at a guy like Darlow. No one's going to buy him now. He's probably going to stick with Newcastle for the rest of his career. But you got to think, why would you pick? Johnston is, he has about what 2 years on Darlow, so maybe that's the reason. But why not give it to someone else to have? I don't see Johnson getting on the pitch. I really don't. I think it's going to be between Henderson and Pope. So I just think save Johnston to see if he can be the one to turn around West Brom's fortunes. But for now, I think Darlow's would have been the one to take.
Yeah, I think it was between the two of them, and I think I would have liked to have seen Darlow, but I can understand the decision. Obviously, Johnson's played more football, and like you said, Carl Darlow was dropped, so I can understand that. But it would have been interesting to see. But nonetheless, interesting to see Sam Johnson get capped for the national team. So congratulations to him, massive congratulations to him. But the other positions of Henderson and Pope, like I said, it's a little bit more of a battle that one's going to be, because obviously, again, Pope would have played more football throughout the entirety of the season, but right now Dean Henderson, De Gea left because I think he was having a kid, so he left for a bit, and Henderson came in and he's been bossing that number one position at United. So I think they're going to have a bit of a battle there, and obviously United are significantly higher than Burnley. So personally, I'd like to see Henderson in that number one role. I don't know about you.
I would have to beg to differ. I think that Pope has obviously been the number one for Burnley, for the past couple of years. We've seen a lot of promise from Henderson. Whether it was last season with Sheffield United, who obviously miss him now. Like take him out of the team and they completely miss him. And you put him into a side that he's played in the Europa League, he's played against better opposition, and he has done really well. But I think Nick Pope has been there time and time again for Burnley. He's been the one he's had a fantastic season too, and he's the one that's been playing regular football. You look at obviously Jordan Pickford out at the moment as well. I think that I would have put Pope over Pickford too at this point, just because his frame, how tall he is, his wingspan. He's a great keeper as well. So I think for me, Pope would be that kind of caliber goalkeeper that Southgate would be looking for.
Yeah, I can see the argument there. I think Pope, realistically, he needs out of Burnley. I think I'm not massively sure of it. I think he's probably like mid to late 20s now, or approaching 30 maybe. Actually,
he's 28.
28. Well, that's still obviously like prime goalkeeper years, isn't it? Goalkeepers have such longevity, which we know. But I think for his sake, it would be good for a top Premier League side to take a punt on him. I think it won't be long until Spurs are looking at a new goalkeeper. There's still so many questions over at Chelsea. Who knows what's going on at Chelsea. But I think it would be amazing to see him be a number one for one of these higher end clubs. But moving on to the defence, this was the area which I think I had the most issues with personally. We'll start off over looking at the left back position. That's one area which I can't argue with, because we saw Luke Shaw and Ben Chilwell being called up, and that is 100% the right decision. Ben Chilwell obviously been called up to the last few squads, a lot of experience there. But right now, number one left back in the league, 100% for me is Luke Shaw. I'd probably say second, maybe Kieran Tierney, even though Arsenal are lower. I do honestly think that he's doing a good job. But for England, if we're looking at purely England, Luke Shaw and Chilwell are the shouts. And for United this season, Luke Shaw has been completely different. He's looked like how he did before he got the injury. And that season when he got the injury, he was playing some of the best football of his life. And he was coming forward with the assists. He was a pure out and out attacking left back. And it's been a long time to get back to where he has been. But signing Telles has literally gaslighted Shaw to become the player that he needs to be. And also, it's fantastic for us because Telles also can come on and offer us something different. And he looks like a competent player as well. But I don't know about you. I can't wait to see what he can do for England.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that, through the entirety of like the last month, really. He got Manchester United's Player of the Month, and it was deserved. It wasn't Bruno Fernandes for once. Luke Shaw has shown that United can, be provided for by by players other than Bruno. And it's really, it's really good to see. It's like he's kind of trying to hit that potential that he once had. He was tipped to be England's next big thing in terms of
Yeah,
defence. He was supposed to rise above the heights of Ashley Cole, and everything that he did at left back. And I think Luke Shaw, I think not only has Tellez brought that fire as well, but the prospect of an England spot, Ben Chilwell moving to Chelsea, moving to that big team. He's got eyes on him because we all know that Southgate loves those top six teams, and
mm,
we've seen it time and time again. Um, and I think that moving, Chilwell moving to Chelsea, trying to get that number one spot, it's not going to happen now because Luke Shaw is playing out of this world this season. So yeah, I'm as a Liverpool fan, it's annoying, but as a neutral, looking from a neutral perspective, it's great to see someone coming back and playing with confidence again. You saw him drop his head a lot when he was under Mourinho,
yeah,
and now he's got a manager that he can trust because he's been there for a while. He's starting to understand, and yeah, he's flourishing.
yeah. I think I for one, I'm very excited to see what happens with him. But over on the right back position, this was somewhere where I wasn't as happy. So the right backs we've taken are Trippier and James, and if you want to count Walker in that conversation, count him. But a lot of the time, also he can come in at centre back. He's kind of the switch player that we've got, which I think was a smart take. Even though he hasn't been playing as much this season because of how fantastic the City defense have been without him, he is still a valuable player to have because he can do those multiple roles. But we're looking at Kieran Trippier and Rhys James. Now, we were talking a little bit before this podcast about Trippier. Now, I, for one, was a bit baffled to see him in there. I think he's had a controversial, obviously, personal life has come to light and he got a 10-game ban. And that was, it's happened, it's done. And, I think he's back playing his football for Atletico. And, he's learned his lesson. But I think I wasn't sure if that was going to impact him more, but you know, players have had. There's been a lot of players that have had controversies this season. They're still amongst the national team, so fair enough. But Kieran Trippier and Rhys James, there's someone that's missing out of those two names. There's someone that's missing. But I'll let you go first. What's your opinion on these?
Um, well, actually, technically, there's two players that are missing, but one of those isn't playing very well. Well, Trippier for me is the go ahead. Um, I know that a lot of people might be a bit puzzled by this, but Atletico Madrid finished third in La Liga last season.
Yeah,
Um, they're now first. Whether that's because they brought Kieran Trippier in, I don't know. But he's had a full season to kind of flourish. He's gelled with the team. He's obviously learning the language, probably. I don't know. And he's got that starting role in arguably one of the best teams in the world right now. He's got obviously he's got a defensive rock behind him in Jan Oblak. Jimenez to the side of him. He's got Lodi on the other wing. He's got Saul and all these great players to feed off, which is something that he might not necessarily have had at Spurs. But I think that Trippier is one of those players that he plays really well when the rest of the team is world class.
yeah,
His stock gets risen when other players are helping him do the work because he's a right back at the end of the day. He can't do everything on the pitch. The right back is one of the most unpleasant positions to play because you don't get all the eyes on the world on you. That's why people like Trent Alexander-Arnold and Aaron Wan-Bissaka have done very well to try and get their names out there right now. And I think Trippier, obviously, the rose-tinted glasses were on when he hit that free
yeah,
kick in against Croatia.
yeah,
But even before that, I think he was underrated. And then after that, all the hype kind of got to everyone. They kind of expected more of him, and he didn't perform as well. Went off to Atletico, and he's been absolutely he's been putting out performances left, right, and centre. So I think Trippier over James, although I would like to see the young fella get some experience. I think Trippier would be the one to go for.
Yeah, well, you mentioned both names in that conversation that weren't taken. Obviously, Trent was the one which turned heads, and Southgate commented on it and just said he hasn't been playing up to the level that we want this season, which I personally don't think you can argue with, because there's also no doubt in my mind that he's our starting right back for the Euros and for competitions to come. But I think that when the results haven't been coming in, Liverpool have been struggling. You said earlier, like one of the worst title contenders, in history for trying to go back to back. But and I agree. Maybe it's the question of whether it's the worst one of all time. I think Chelsea, I think United. There are a few other ones that could be considered in there, but it's not been good. It's not been pretty at all. And he's been a part of that team. So, this is the first time in a long time there's no Liverpool players at all in the squad, which was very, very interesting. But also Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I think it's a shame because we're seeing a lot of players at the moment change their nationality. I think, was it Mikel Antonio who recently changed his to Jamaica?
Yes, I think, Jamaica.
Yeah. And again, the other day against Arsenal, when I was watching that 3-3 game, which is arguably game of the season, it was that fantastic. But he was so unfortunate not to score, but he looked really good. He looked he was really good at playing the balls in. He was kind of fulfilling the role of the striker at the moment. They don't really have a recognised striker. But yeah, he was absolutely fantastic in that game. So we're currently in the process of losing players to other national teams, which does happen if they're not getting picked. And Wan-Bissaka can also claim nationality for the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which a few other players can. They could have an incredible team, but would I blame him at this rate? No. I think he's probably hungry for national football. He's been capped a bunch of times for youth level for England, but now's the time where he needs to get that experience. And I can't believe in the qualifiers that Southgate didn't just cap him. Like, yeah, fair enough. We'll cap you now, and then we've got you then. But for some reason, no. I mean, I know there's more to his game that he needs to work on, but didn't quite understand that one. Don't know about you.
If you were to combine Trent Alexander-Arnold and Aaron Wan-Bissaka, you would have the complete player. Let's just get that out of the way right now. So obviously, neither of them can shoot that well. Aaron Wan-Bissaka's left foot is questionable, but his defending and his pace is undeniable. He does have a little. He has levels of passing. If you add Trent's passing, his vision, dribbling ability, and decision making, you would have the complete right back right there. You would have arguably one of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
If you to combine the both of them, and I think that it's key to note that both of those players coming through at the same time it's terrible, because we've got this option. It's a shame that neither of them can shift the position, because I'd have both of them in this team. I really would.
I think realistically, it's them two, and also to throw a bit of disrespect on Rhys James's name, really, because it was again also a very competent, talented right back. So the three of them are kind of fighting for that number one spot at the moment. And although I think Trent will pretty much quite confidently have it, right now it's looking like Rhys James is going to be the nailed-on number two. So if I was Aaron Wan-Bissaka, I wouldn't even blame him if he wants to change his nationality. I'd go for it if I was him at this rate.
I mean, the Republic of Congo have quite a few good players. I think they've got Yannick Bolasie. They've got Waman, who's tearing it up in the Bundesliga at the moment. And they've got quite a few good players. I mean, if half the England players that could play for Jamaica would play for Jamaica, then we'd be screwed.
Yeah,
I think Raheem Sterling has eligibility to play for Jamaica. There's a lot of players that that could join Leon Bailey, who's arguably one of the best young talents in the world right now.
Yeah, genuinely, it could be a very scary prospect. But that's the right back and the left back positions. If we move to the centre backs again, just to recap your memory: Connor Cody, Eric Dyer, Harry Maguire, Tyrone Mings, John Stones, and Carl Walker. Now,
the confusion on your face when you had to say Connor Cody.
there was a few like that I couldn't back. I could not back at all. He's one of them. the nailed-on ones that are always going to go were probably Maguire and Stones. Maguire's found a lot more level this season, and John Stones has been arguably the best centre-back in the league this season, apart from maybe his teammate Ruben Diaz. They've been fantastic together. Completely rejuvenated player. Never thought I'd say that. I thought he was on his way out at Man City, to be honest with you. Probably could still have another huge club in England, but I think he needed a fresh start. But shows what I know.
The thing is, right, Arsenal were going to sign him for dirt cheap because of how bad his form was, because we're all, mouths were watering at the prospect of Ruben Diaz and Aymeric Laporte playing together. Arsenal would have got a steal if that would have happened, because John Stones is playing unbelievably this season, and that does help with the back four that he's got as well.
I mean, it does raise so many questions of what Laporte is going to do. It really does, because again, Laporte on his day, again, he's like one of the top 5 defenders in the world. So Man City right now, they went from defensive shambles last season, really in a lot of games, to beyond confident now. So it is fantastic. But Maguire again, second in the league with United, he's provided a lot more level this season. So I think that those two are probably going to be your nailed on players. But then you've also got backups of Eric Dyer, Connor Cody, Tyrone Mings, and also, like I said earlier, Kyle Walker in that kind of switch role position. All 3 of those, in my opinion, shouldn't have gone. All 3. I think Connor Cody, halfway through the season, I was happy with him, and he got called up to the England squad, and he was in good form. But Wolves have been too inconsistent, and defensively, that's been where a lot of their issues have been. He hasn't even been the best defender at Wolves this season. That's probably been Roman Saiss. He's probably been the best. Maybe even Willy Bolly second.
I think Bolly probably would have been first. Like his ratings at the moment have spiked since last season.
Yeah, I was going to say he's definitely been second or third on their list this season. So I couldn't understand that. Eric Dyer, just again,
keep it PG.
Again, he started so well, and then now it's actually painful most of the games you watch him in. But he's so frustrating, because I really want to like Dyer, because I used to really, really like him, but the form again just isn't good enough, and especially not for the England squad. And also Tyrone Mings, I've said it before, he's not even the best English centre back at Villa. He's not. I've got 3 names here. I want to know your opinion on them. Ben Godfrey from Everton. Ben Godfrey or Michael Keane. Either of them could have potentially gone up here, but I think Keane was obviously closer to being picked because of he's had previous England experience. But I would have liked to have seen Ben Godfrey as well. He's a big defender, big frame, talented, young. Again, it would have been so good to have seen him capped. Michael Keane as well, potentially in that conversation. Fikayo Tomori. You've got Kieran Trippier, who I'm pretty sure Kieran Trippier and Jude Bellingham, rather, the only English players outside of the Premier League to be selected. You've also got Sancho normally, but obviously he hasn't been picked for this team because I think he's had a few injury knocks. But Tomori's gone over to AC Milan, where Chelsea were just disrespecting him and not wanting him. He's gone over there, and he genuinely, against United, in both legs, he was arguably man of the match. The only person who could have contested him was Franck Kessié. But he was that good against United, and that's what he can do. So I think every Premier League club, in case AC Milan is stupid and don't try and make that permanent, they should be looking at that situation, because maybe Tuchel's not paying as much attention. Maybe he's got a blind eye to it. Who knows? But I would love Tomori at my club, and I think he deserves to be in that team 100%.
I'd take him at Liverpool,
and then
100%.
Yeah, he's a fantastic player. The only other player that I had in that conversation, potentially else, there's a couple, but there's one that I was really serious for, was also Konza from Aston Villa, who is my shout of him being the better English centre back at Villa than Mings. I'll leave it up to everyone else's opinion. I don't know what you think about those shouts, but I 100% think Konza over Mings.
I can't disagree. I really can't. I think it would be great to see Godfrey to get that start, or maybe maybe Ben White. Maybe obviously he hasn't played again. He hasn't played great for Brighton, but he arguably would probably be one of England's most promising players, other than Tomori. I think Tomori's a foregone conclusion. Tomori, yet again, I'll say it again. I would have him at Liverpool. No doubt about it. And it would be so stupid for Tuchel to let him go. It would just show that, like, maybe he doesn't deserve as much credit as we think, and he's just willing to spend so much money because that's kind of where he came from. So, I think, it would baffle me why Tuchel would drop, a guy like Tomori, and again, Konsa as well. He's been playing unreal. Villa have been doing so well this season, and they've done justice in the fact that they've called up an England centre back, but they've called up the wrong Aston Villa centre back. So I think Konsa over definitely over Mings, and yeah, Tomori for me would 100% would have to replace Cody. And Southgate, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think there was just a few defensive ones. I think that was the only real area which I had real grievances with, and I was like, "Come on, man!" There's some players there that, and 100% I get it. Dyer, plenty of England experience. Tyrone Mings, plenty of England experience. Same with Connor Cody. They've all got plenty of, they've been capped before, and they're also huge players for their own respective clubs. And I do get it, but there's another England player which could have potentially have gone. Why not Craig Dawson? Why not? He is one of he's gonna be he's a team of the season contender defender this season. He's been so good at West Ham, so unbelievably good.
He has scored 2 own goals in a row though.
Oh yeah, we all do that on occasion, don't we?
I mean, I used to do it in Sunday League. I scored a proper good one, top bins.
Yeah, we've all done it, mate. We've all had a couple, but I think that he's also just an example. Obviously, he's a bit longer in the tooth now, but I think he's someone who I also think would have been more qualified to go than Cody, Dyer, or Mings. He's another player on the examples. But also, one thing you can say about Southgate is that he is very conscious of the ages of his players. I think he does take typically a younger core group. But overall, in terms of the defense, that was the only real area I had the grievances with. But it'll be interesting to see what people think if we've made any good shouts there, if they've made any awful ones. Get in contact with us as always. We will be telling you the ways to get a hold of us at the end of this podcast, like normal.
Oh, they're on the screen down below if you have eyes.
Yeah, or if you have, that's a good point. If you have eyes, just but moving on to the midfield, a few less players to talk about here. But again, to refresh your memory, Bellingham, Calvin Phillips, Phil Foden, and Declan Rice, Lingard, Ward-Prowse, and Mount. On face, there is there anyone that you're not too happy with there?
Oh, I'm not happy with Jesse Lingard just because he's playing well. That's my only real grievance. I mean, I'm a bit. Maybe Calvin Phillips. I get he's young and promising. Well, he's not actually. I think he's hitting about 24, 25 now. So, I think maybe obviously Rice is going to be the one to start in that CDM spot.
Yeah.
That's a foregone conclusion for me. Yeah, obviously in the absence of Jordan Henderson, I'm not sure who I would have given the start ahead of a guy like Calvin Phillips. Yeah, obviously he's playing really well for Leeds. So maybe, yeah, you know what? Maybe so. Maybe give it to Phillips. Maybe give him his caps. But I think for me, yeah, you know my relationship and Jesse Lingard. I've talking to Jamie Jackson about how much I don't like him.
Yeah.
But yeah, just there's no real in terms of form. There's no real complaints. Jude Bellingham, why not get him his first start? Fill in for the injured spots. Obviously, so many injuries in this. In this category. You've got Jordan Henderson, as we already mentioned, Harvey Barnes. We've got James Maddison. Those are just to name a few in this midfield spot. So, obviously James Ward-Prowse had to go. Phil Foden had to go. I'm not too sure about Mason Mount.
He had to go.
Yeah, I guess with with the attacking outlet, him and Lingard were the two leading central attack midfielders. I do think if Maddison wasn't, for me, I'd choose Maddison over Mount if he was fit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that again, out of the pieces he had to choose from, he got the right setup.
Yeah, I think there's a good core of players there. I think, like you said, Jesse Lingard and Mason Mount have been the ones that have been firing from the midfield. Mason Mount's been doing really good for Chelsea, and I think almost a little bit unfair to him. He has been made into this kind of controversial player. I think just because of how many people had grievances with the likes of Grealish, Maddison, and Foden occasionally being overlooked for him, and I do 100% agree there. There's been times where I think those players have definitely been better shouts to take. Maddison's definitely an example of someone who's been disrespected quite a lot over the years. Same with Grealish. But what I would say is that you can't really. He's one of Chelsea's best players. He is one of Chelsea's best players, especially at the moment. And in a season when they signed so many top class players that occupied that midfield role, and they just haven't been performing as well, I think you've got to say fair play to him, because he's still like fighting the likes of Kai Havertz and Ziyech, who obviously they occupy other roles as well, but they're huge players, and he's still doing it. And as for Jesse Lingard, he just loves London. He just loves playing football in London. I mean, obviously, even against Arsenal, a goal and assist, and what a goal as well! Fantastic goal he scored. Absolutely loving his football at the moment. I'm sure when we do the next United special, there's plenty we can talk about with him there. But 100% deserves to go in my book. And the other one, Phil Foden, obviously for a lot of this season, been Manchester City's arguably their best player. I think him, Ruben Diaz, John Stones, and Gundogan have been all beyond incredible, as well as De Bruyne, because they've also got Kevin De Bruyne. But Phil Foden, man, is he the best young English talent?
Yeah. Oh, that shouldn't even be a question.
Yeah, he's so good, isn't he? He is so good.
Unbelievable. While we're on the topic of Manchester City, though, there was something that I saw that was like on the Ballon d'Or like sort of running list. At the moment, Gundogan is fourth.
Doesn't even surprise me.
Like it's just weird to see Gundogan like kind of past his prime now in the Ballon d'Or shortlist.
It's ridiculous, because like this season he just cannot score enough goals. He loves it, absolutely loves it. Genuinely, whenever I watch, obviously you don't like seeing City succeed if you're especially if you're a United fan, or if you're like a Liverpool fan or something, you're not a fan of it. But
get him on the plane.
Get him, see if he's got any English heritage in there. See if he's got any English nationality. Germany are fantastic, but we could tempt him. We could tempt him maybe.
we've got Cody.
Yeah, we've got Cody. Yeah, you can link up with Cody. But no, he has been playing out of his skin. So yeah, but again, Phil Foden, absolutely fantastic. But then the other three are Declan Rice, Calvin Phillips, and Bellingham for me, and Ward-Prowse. I love Ward-Prowse. I've said it before, he's too good for Southampton a lot of the time. He's part of a team that have been beaten 9-0 on two separate occasions, and that still hasn't tempted him at the exit door. So you've got to say, for the Southampton captain, fair play to him. Declan Rice, obviously, fantastic player, going to go for a lot of money. Calvin Phillips, good young player. Again, like you said, maybe not as high on the list for me as maybe Southgate rates him. I think he's very talented, but I think when it comes to the actual Euro team, there could be, a couple of players who go ahead of him.
But there's no one else. I'm having a look down the list.
With fitness, I guess. But Jude Bellingham as well. That was the one which turned some heads. I think we have a right to talk about this guy for a little bit. Still like, what was he, like 17 years old?
Yep.
Yeah. It's, oh man, it's crazy, isn't it? And he's over at Borussia Dortmund starting maybe every other game.
When I was 17 years old, I was struggling in A-levels. He's currently earning buckloads in Germany.
Yeah,
it's so sad.
And you obviously at the moment it's really weird, because obviously a couple of seasons ago and last season, really the main man was Jadon Sancho over there. The main kind of asset they had. And then all of a sudden, Erling Haaland comes into the fray, and he is arguably he's 20 years old, and he's arguably one of the best strikers in the world again. Bonkers, crazy. And then also out of nowhere, they pull in Jude Bellingham, a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid. And he's also like in the conversation. Clearly, he's in the conversation because we're looking at the team here. He's one of the best centre mids in England, and he's 17 years old. It is, honestly, it makes you want to like rub your eyes. You can't believe it, can you? But Jude, congratulations to him, man. Wow, what a guy, what a player.
I feel so old.
Maybe in a different light, you know, but Birmingham City may have been in the Prem in a couple of years if he stuck around. But
in a different light, I might have signed for Birmingham City and then Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, what a Midlands gem in Jude Bellingham. It'd be very interesting to see what he can do for in this squad. But moving on finally to the attacking core unit. To refresh your memory once again, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford, Bukayo Saka, Raheem Sterling, and Ollie Watkins. Not a bad selection of attackers there, in all honesty. Not bad at all. The main man, Kane, not really a question there, is it? Again, playing some of the best football of his career. We say that every season. One of in a very weird topsy-turvy Tottenham team, he's the only constant, really. Him and Son are the ones who keep the form. I don't think there's anyone who's even close to knocking him off the top spot in terms of a striker position, you know. And that's no disrespect to Ollie Watkins or Calvert-Lewin. They're fantastic players, but what can you say?
He's incredible. Arguably, I think he's been involved in the most goals this season in terms of goals and assists. He can do it all. You know, maybe he doesn't have the movement of an Ollie Watkins or a Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but he's got the height, he's got the footballing ability, he can shoot the ball. What more can you want from your striker? The you know, when it comes to Watkins and Calvert-Lewin, even just in that striker position, you know, any other strikers that could have been picked are kind of injured at the moment.
Yeah,
Danny Ings and potentially Tammy Abraham, although he hasn't really been playing for Chelsea that much. So, although on the topic of Danny Ings, Manchester City are looking at signing him, which is bizarre.
I'll tell you what, I don't think it's as bizarre. I feel like he said a while ago, I think, that he wants Champions League football, and I think he deserves it. I think he is a good enough player. Obviously, he was at Liverpool for a long period of time, and he was a secondary striker, but what stopped him from being first is his injury record. But he's, you know, touch wood, found a bit more form recently in terms of injuries. But obviously, recently, you know, he's picked up a knock, but I think he would be a smart signing. I had another destination for him in mind. I think he should go and be the leading man at Leicester. I think that would be such a good deal. Because right now, I mean, Iheanacho coming back in form, Jamie Vardy, you know, getting on a bit, potentially, you know, going and having a championship season with Sheffield, or maybe going on to America or somewhere. You know, he owes it to himself. He can have a nice retirement. But like, I think Danny Ings coming in alongside, hopefully for Leicester, and inform Iheanacho, who absolutely destroyed United in the FA Cup. He was so good.
You know what? I reckon Vardy can go and retire in Spain, so he can go down to IB for every single weekend, after every single game, just party hard, Red Bulls and party, because that's what Jamie Vardy does best.
That's what he loves. That's what he loves. He deserves it, man. But yeah, 100%. You know, I think that would be a fantastic move for Ings. But also, I can see what City are looking at him. He is a very good player on his day. But potentially a bit underwhelming in terms of City. You'd think maybe. I think there's only one striker they're really going to be looking at in the summer. I think that's going to be Haaland. It makes sense for him to go to City. I don't want to admit it. I want United to do everything in their power, realistically. He's that good.
I don't think it'd happen.
He's so good, man. But anyway, yeah, Kane, Calvert-Lewin and Ollie Watkins, again, two fantastic strikers. Calvert-Lewin is looking like a real impressive kind of. All three of them offer something very different. Calvert-Lewin also surprisingly nimble with his height, but also scores a lot of goals with his head as well. Calvert-Lewin, and again, another striker that I think potentially could be looked at if he has a good end to the season. Another one who could potentially go for a lot of money one day. But for now, he's under a progressive manager in Ancelotti, and he's also part of a very good Everton team. They've had a very good season. They're still competing. So, a great asset for Everton. And then Ollie Watkins as well. He had so many doubts at the start of the season. There were so many people throwing questions around him. I think it was when we did. I think we did a collab video over on Total Sport, and it might have been Jacob Townswell maybe who was saying that was his potential signing of the season. And there's legs. I think there's a few others that may be a bit more prominent there, but I think he was a big fan of that one. So I could have got that right. It might have been Chris, but
I think it was Jacob. Yeah, former guest on the Average Pundits too.
Former guest as well on the Average Pundits. So a big shout out to him for a good call there. So yeah, a good core unit of strikers, and then for your wingers, you've got Rashford, Sterling, and Saka. There were a few questions around Rashford's fitness. He has linked back up with the England squad now. So, I mean, we were saying before, it may have been wiser to rest him. Obviously, Southgate wants to take the best of the best, but it could have been wiser to rest him and maybe call up someone, which I think we both kind of agree. I think you pitched him. We both kind of agreed it could have been interesting. Who was that man, Rhys?
Well. So I think that potentially Marcus Rashford could have been. He could have been kind of rested. It probably would have made sense for it to happen. I think that maybe Patrick Bamford.
Yeah.
Maybe because he has been firing on all cylinders at the moment, and although looking at this team, you may be thinking Rashford would probably play on the left in these qualifiers, and Bamford would probably play down the middle, which is Kane's position. But you can't. You look at his record this season. You can't. You have to look at the variables. Like I would have taken Bamford over Watkins at this rate.
I think I may have agreed. Just based on the current form. Based on current form, it would have been again interesting to try it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that him as a player, he talk about someone who's proven doubters wrong, right? At the beginning of the season, I completely doo-dooed on him, Yeah. And look where he is now. But yeah, I think Bamford for me would have been one of the ones that I might have taken. But apart from that, I think this is a very strong attack. If like injuries aside, obviously we don't have Jadon Sancho in the squad. But injuries aside, you look at this team and you think, you know what? It's all right.
Yeah, it isn't bad. I mean, Raheem Sterling, obviously, you want to have him in your side. You're a better setup with Raheem Sterling, 100%. And Saka as well. At times, he has been carrying Arsenal single-handedly. The only other player that I think we were maybe looking at was potentially Jared Bowen, who could have come in, because based on just how much his output's been this season, he could have come in potentially for Rashford, maybe.
Completely forgot about Jared Bowen. Like you see, I think I remember mentioning Patrick Bamford a little bit, but that was the one I was really going to bat for, wasn't it? I completely forgot. I really forgot. Yeah, Jared Bowen. I think maybe we could. Yeah, that would have been my replacement for Marcus Rashford if it would have been safer to maybe rest him.
Yeah.
Obviously he's had a busy week with the Europa League and everything like that. So obviously we've got San Marino on the day on the day of recording tomorrow night. Night in terms of podcasting releases. I think that Bowen probably should have had the nod ahead, especially because of how much form he's in at the moment.
Yeah.
He's scoring goals left and right. He scored a goal against Arsenal. He's performing very, very well in this West Ham team, and he's flourishing very well. Another underrated signing from West Ham. They've made two very, very good signings this summer. They signed Ben Rama on a permanent deal, and they signed Jared Bowen too. They got Jesse Lingard in.
Jared Bowen was a bit before, I think.
He came in. Did he come in January last season or something like
that? Potentially last year. I know he came out from Hull. I think maybe it would have even been last summer. It could have been before. I'm not massive. He's been there for a fair bit of time now.
he's done incredibly well in terms of where he's come from, and I think that he in terms of form, he's picking up now. One of the better right midfielders in the Premier League in terms of being English. So I think that Bowen probably could do a job on that right hand side instead of like maybe move Sterling over to the left, play Bowen on the right, and you've still got yourself a competent attack.
Yeah, I agreed when you said it. I think if Rashford wasn't fit, it would have been a very interesting call up. But nonetheless, we're looking at this England team on face, and overall it's pretty well balanced, and I can understand why they've gone for each player. I can understand there's not a player in that team that I can't necessarily understand. But there's certainly the main issue with my area would have been the defence and the issues that I said. There was a few players I couldn't back personally. I understand why, but I couldn't back.
Get Gundogan on the plane. I swear he's got some Cockney in him.
He's got a bit Cockney in him. But overall, we would love to know your guys' opinion on this team. Obviously, there's players that we haven't said for obvious reasons due to injury. You know, the Sanchos, your Madison, Henderson, Grealish, Pickford as well. We've mentioned the majority of them, but we would love
and all that. Like
exactly. But we would love to know who everyone's thinking in part of this team. So as always, comment down below and we will be featuring comments in future episodes. If you want to get a hold of us on Instagram or Facebook, we are The Average Pundits, and if you want to get a hold of us on Twitter, we are Pundits Average. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcast, please give us a follow so you can keep up to date with all of the content we release. And if you're watching on YouTube, the all-important like and subscribe will be greatly appreciated. So we will be keeping an eye on the international break for now, but we will be back with some interesting Premier League content very soon. As always, Rhys, thank you for joining me.
No, it's fun to see where we are in terms of England and who we think that is going to be the kind of like the strongest team for us. I in my head I have mine. Let us know over on social media or in the comment section who do you think would be the strongest starting 11 to play against Poland, because they've got arguably one of probably the best striker in the world right now. They got a very formidable team. Who would you start against Poland? Let us know down below or over on social media. It's going to be an interesting international break, qualifying for the World Cups, and we're about to play some farmers and some milkmen.
As always, guys, thank you very much, and we will see you next time.
For the latest football content, subscribe to The Average Pundits on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite streaming service and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.